Okay, what are you even talking about now?
All right, we are focused. Conic circles, this is not the unit circle. These are the circles like x squared plus y squared equals 25. You guys did these last year. Circles were the easiest of all the shapes. We will eventually learn parabolas, ellipses, and then hyperbolas, all of which will be on the test. These are not lessons or homework assignments that you want to take lightly, and I'll learn it later because they are pretty difficult. Luckily for us, the first one is not that bad at all. The first one, I just said, is not that bad. 16x squared over 3 plus 16y squared over 3 equals what? All right. And I gave you the wrong one. I did. We are. It's. At least I have my whiteout back. All right. All right. Find the equation of the circle in standard form. All right, I'm going to come back to what I wrote up here. This is a circle in standard form. It should somewhat look familiar to you. Do you guys remember what the center and what the radius is? I'm going to write that over here on the side. Center is h comma k. HK. It's always the opposite of both parentheses. Just like when you did the parabola, it was the opposite of the inside, outside stayed the same. Well, both of these are in parentheses, so it's opposite of both, HK. Do you guys remember the shifting stuff that you've done before? Same kind of concept. All right, radius. What's the radius going to be? R. R is correct. Notice this is R squared. So if this number here was 36, what would your radius be? 6. If this number was 5, what would your radius be? Root 5? Make sense? It's the square root of whatever this is that gives you your radius. So if this number was 7, or yes, 7, already squared and all was 7, what would your radius be? Root 7. All right, number 1, pretty easy. Center at the origin, and the radius is 9. All right, if the center is at the origin, what is the center? 0, 0. So I'm going to write it with you. If I have x minus 0 quantity squared, is that the same as just x squared? All right, I'll let you guys finish it from there. Okay, ready? Plus, and then we have y minus 0 squared, so that's just what? Equals, the radius is 9, and I square it, so what does it equal? 81. Now, if I gave you this and asked you what's the center, would you get 0, 0? And if I asked you what's the radius, you'd square root, would you get 9? All right, questions? Easy enough? Center is 3, negative 4. And radius is 3 root 2. I just put C for center, R for radius. Because the center is no longer 0, 0, I am going to have quantity squared here. All right, and what do we end up with? X minus 3 quantity squared, and for the y, do you see why it's plus 4? Y minus negative 4, would it be plus 4? Always opposites. And do you agree if I asked for the center, you would take the opposite of both, and it would be positive 3 and negative 4? All right. What do I put here? Whatever the radius is, squared. Do you guys remember how to square numbers like that? You learned it back in Math 2. You distribute the exponent, or you write it as 3 root 2 times 3 root 2, however your brain processes it. Distribute the exponent, or 3 root 2 times 3 root 2, which is equivalent to 9 times what? 2, because root 2 times root 2 is 2. The radicals undo each other, or you just think of it as 4. And what's the square root of 4? All right, what's 9 times 2? So what is 3 root 2 squared? So what do I put here for the r squared? 18. Now if I asked you what's the radius of this circle, you would take the square root of 18. And when you do that and you break it down, what do you end up getting? Does that make sense? All right. Questions here? Are we good? Yes. All right, number 3. I'm going to let you try this one on your own. Center is negative 5, 2. That's a 5. Negative 5, 2. And diameter equals 4 root 5. But it's not really that tricky because you've learned about radius and diameter in elementary school. If the diameter is 4 root 5, what is the radius? Half of that. And when you cut in half, you just cut the coefficient in half, so what's the radius? 2 root 5. All right, go ahead and do your work. All right. What do we have in our parentheses? X plus 5 quantity squared plus y quantity squared equals, has anybody squared this already? Did you square this or half of this? Half. So the radius is 2 root 5. Anybody have what you have when it's squared? Yes. 20. Anyone else agree with the 20? Yes. Does anybody need to see the work for the 20?
Well, I got a question.
Yes.
Can you just square the diameter in half?
No, yeah. Because squaring and doubling are two different things. Yes?
Could you multiply 4 root 5 times 4 root 5 and then divide that by 2?
Yes.
Could you?
Not, you'd have to try it. Try it and see. Maybe not. But that's kind of like the question Nick was asking. You want to cut in half in first and then square it. Doesn't work. Okay. All right. Any questions here? All right. Really quick. What makes this a circle? The leading coefficients always have to be 1. Do you see how these right here are 1 and 1? Or they have to be the same. For example, they could both be 5 and 5, and you would just divide 5 to the other side. Or 8 and 8, you divide 8 to the other side. Once you throw numbers that are different in front, it's no longer a circle. For example, if this coefficient was 8 and this coefficient was 10, it's no longer a circle. Does anybody know what the shape is then? It's an oval. You are correct. It is an ellipse. And that's what makes it an oval, is that one side is longer than the other. Does that make sense? All right. Questions? All right. Let's move on to number 4. And we will eventually have them with, instead of a plus sign, there's a minus sign. That changes the shape. It's no longer a circle in that case either. Number 4. Write the equation in standard form and find the center and radius. Let me write that up here. Write the equation in standard form. And we have the tools to do that. This is standard form right here. And we have the tools to do that. All right. Write the equation in standard form. And what did I say to find? Find center and radius. All right, number 4. 16 x squared plus 16 y squared equals 1. And all of these are going to be divided by 3. This is the problem that I wrote at the beginning of notes that I erased. 16 over 3x squared plus 16 over 3y squared equals 1. Before you go too far and work ahead, I do need you listening. You will have test questions that ask you to name the shape. Right now, this is the only shape we have, but when you have multiple things on your test, multiple shapes, how can you tell this is a circle and not an ellipse or a parabola or a hyperbola? All right. Characteristics. I heard one. What is it? Okay. Same leading coefficients. One, before we even start that, there's an x squared and a y squared. If there was only an x squared, what shape would it be? Parabola. If there's only a y squared, which we will have, which you've seen, what shape will it be? Still a parabola, but what kind of parabola? Sideways. Y squared by itself is a sideways parabola. X squared by itself is our traditional parabola. X squared and a y squared, it's either circle, ellipse, or hyperbola. So how do we know it's a circle? Plus sign, not a minus. And you guys said something about these leading coefficients. Same. 16 over 3, 16 over 3. All right, so when you're looking for circles, you look at there's 2 squares, there's a plus sign, and the leading coefficients are the same. Got it? All right, I want to get it in standard form. Standard form should not have any coefficients in the front. I am going to have to get rid of those. Any suggestions on what to do? I'll start you off. Multiply both sides by, not 16 over 3, but I heard 3. We can do 3 first. If you want to do it all in one shot, you would do what? 3 over 16. Are you guys okay if I just do 3 first? All right, when I distribute that, these cross out. Do you agree? 16x squared plus 16y squared equals 0 or 3? 3. All right, what do I divide everything by now? 16. That's the same as multiplying both sides by 1/16. Gone. X squared plus y squared equals 3 over 16, and that's standard form. We're not done with the problem, but we're done with the first part, and the first part was write it in standard form. Questions on that one? All right, what's the center? 0, 0. And radius, what do I do? Leave it as is, cut it in half, or square root top and bottom? So you take the square root of 3 over the square root of 16, which is root 3 over 4. Got it? Questions? The r squared, sorry, the r squared is 3/16, and your radius is always the square root of that. So you do root 3 over root 16. And root 3 is not a perfect square, so we leave it root 3. Root 16 is 4. Yes? Yes.
If they ask you for the diameter, you just multiply it by 2.
Yes. If they ask you for the diameter, you would double this. That is correct. All right. Questions? Bless you. All right. We are going to try another one like this. So far, do you guys agree it's really not that hard? Circles? Oh, thank you. Circles are not that bad. All right, number 2. 9x squared plus 9y squared plus 54x minus 36y plus 17 equals 0. Oh my gosh, I know I spoke too soon. All right, really not that bad. I know you're looking at me like, hey, you just said this was easy. You have the tools to do this. I promise it's nothing new. This is still review. Okay, so you're taking the test and they ask you what shape it is. How do we know it's a circle? First, there's two what? X squared and y squared. Does that happen here? They're both positive. Are they both positive? And the leading coefficients are the same. Are the leading coefficients the same? So we know it's a circle. Make sense? Even if this 9y squared was on the, like over here, in between these two terms, would it still be a circle? Yes. An x squared and a y squared. They have to both be positive or a plus sign in between if the first one's positive. What else did we say? Leading coefficients, the same. We good? All right. Now, we want it to be in standard form, and right now it's nowhere near standard form. We need to pull our x's together, we need to pull our y's together, and we need to get this constant off to the other side. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to subtract that constant, and as I subtract it, I'm going to rewrite with variables together. All right, so here's what it looks like. 9x squared plus 54x plus 9y squared minus 36y equals negative 17. All right, that was not a hard step. All I did was move things around. This guy moved over. I moved the x's together and the y's together, and that's all I've done. So far, so good? Okay. Do you remember when we last unit, when we completed the square, or maybe it was the unit before, we completed the square and I told you guys then we're going to do this more, you need to know it. Yes? Okay. Well, this is one where you have no choice but to complete the square. Can't use quadratic like we used to. This is a complete the square problem. I am going to bubble that or underline that, and the same with that. All right, because there's double variables, we will have a double complete the square. This is probably the hardest one you're going to see today, and it's not that it's hard, it's just more steps than the others. All right, in order to complete the square, I cannot have that 9 there, so I'm going to factor that guy out. 9 parentheses x squared plus 54x plus blank, and I'm not going to fill that blank in just yet. No, but that's not 54. 9 times what is 54? 6. All right. The question was, should we take out an x? I'm taking out just my coefficient of 9, not the x. Why not the x?
So you can complete the square.
So that we can complete the square. We need the x's in there, the x squared and the x to complete the square. All right. So far, so good. What am I going to take out of this next piece here? A 9. Y squared minus what? 4y plus blank equals negative 17. Now, because I have this plus blank here, I'm going to have how many plus blanks on the other side? 2. All right, so this is our standard complete the square. We're just doing it on 2 pieces, on the x variable as well as the y variable. So I have 2 blanks. You've done this before, we just have not done it together in this class, so it's been a while for you. Okay, ignoring the 9s, do you guys remember how to fill in the blanks? You take the middle numbers, divide them by 2 and what? Square. 6 cut in half? Squared? Put that there. Negative 4 cut in half? Negative 2 squared? Put that there. So this one was 4, and you said this one was 9? Now, here is where, if a kid makes a mistake, it typically happens. Are you ready? What's the most common mistake kids make? They say, oh, plus 9 and plus 4, because what I add to one side, I must add to the other. It makes sense. But do you remember your teacher last year taught you that if you have a coefficient on the outside, you do have to multiply it back in? Do you remember that? Oh, I heard a lot of ohs. I'm glad you remembered. What's 9 times 9? And what's 9 times 4? All right, do you guys remember that? Even though it's been a while, some of you do remember. All right, after that, that's really the hard part. The rest is just factoring and getting it cleaned up. Now remember, when we complete the square, we purposely set it up so that it could be, so we can write it as a quantity squared. Anybody have negative 17 plus 81 plus 36? 100. All right, I'm going to have you guys go ahead and factor those two. All right, what is this first one factor to? X plus 3. Should they come out exactly the same? That's what complete the square is, getting them to come out exactly the same. What is this? Y and Y minus 2 minus 2. It's important to make sure you're keeping track of which one's plus, which one's minus. 9x plus 3 quantity squared plus 9y minus 2 quantity squared equals 100. And what is the last step to get it in standard form? Divide everything by 9, because we can't have those leading coefficients there when we're getting it to standard form. All right, x plus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 100 over 9. There's my standard form. I still need to find the center and radius, but that's easy. Before I find it, even though we've never done this before, do you agree these are steps you somewhat remember? Yes, and it's not that bad. All right, I'm going to write the center over here. Center is what? Positive 2. And your radius, you take the square root of the top and the bottom. Lucky for us, they're both perfect squares. What is it? 10 over 3. So you have two answers, your standard form and then your center and radius. Yes? You take the opposites of both the parentheses, so opposite of positive 3 is negative 3. Opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. Got it? All right, I'm gonna have you start off on number 3. This one we're also going to sketch. But lucky for us, sketching circles are pretty nice. All right. X squared plus y squared minus 10x minus 6y plus 25 equals 0. I'm going to have you guys at least start this one. Get your x's together, get your y's together, get your constant to the other side. Is there a not a GCF, but is there a constant to pull out on this one? No. Did you guys catch that and realize it was a smidge bit easier? Plus y squared minus 6y equals negative 25. Since there is no constant to pull out, can I go straight to putting my blanks in?
Yeah.
And how many blanks on the far right side? 2. Okay. What's your first blank? 25, because negative 10 cut in half is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. All right, what's the second blank? Because negative 6 cut in half is negative 3, and negative 3 squared is 9. Now, what are my blanks on this side? So why in the world are these two matching 24, 9, 24, 9, where on these two they didn't match? Good. We have these coefficients in the front that we had to put back in, where that didn't happen here, so the numbers stay the same. Make sense? Yes? All right. Double bubble if you haven't already. All right, can you guys give it to me? X minus 5 and minus 5, and y minus 3. And does anybody have all this added up over here? What is it? 9. So x minus 5 quantity squared plus y minus 3 quantity squared equals 9 is that standard form. All right. Really quick, a question I forgot to ask in the beginning is how can you tell that this original equation here, the original equation that was given, is a parabola? I'm sorry, circle. It has to have two what? X squared and a y squared. They both have to be positive. Are they both positive? And the coefficients have to be the same. So all three of those things happen. Two squares, both positive, leading coefficients are the same.
Didn't we forget to square root the 1?
We don't square root the 9 in the answer, in the standard form. We will when we find the center and radius. All right, what's the center? 5 and 3. What's the radius? 3. All right, so just a quick review on how to sketch. Are you ready? All right, I didn't leave myself very much room.
Is this your last problem?
All right, center is 5, 3. So go over 5, up 3. And when you're asked, of course, on the test to graph these, you're always given graph paper. All right, and what's the radius?
3.
So what do I do from the center to make my circle? Up 3, down 3, left 3, and right 3. So go ahead and do that now. And then the best you can, draw your circle. All right, did it come out for on your paper? And one more time, do you agree it wasn't that bad? Any questions?